Hi, this is Khalil Gulivala. Welcome to another episode of the BIPOC Manager podcast. In today's episode, I'm excited to have Nitika Mishra with us. Nitika is a journalist currently with Y Media. She's passionate about making the world a better place. She considers herself a feminist and has always stood up for human rights and openly condemns any form of action that threatens the rights of the two SLGBTQI plus and POC community. She's worked as a reporter and anchor for Fanshawe News Network and a news anchor for Social Talks. She's covered the 2022 London municipal elections for Rogers TV as an on-site reporter, and she gained experience as a content editor at Finique and as an investigative journalist at Surviving a Hate Project. She previously worked with Humber News, ABP Networks, NDTV, Karwan Mohabbat, and Election Tamasha. Nitika, thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Nitika. One of the first questions I'd love to ask you is, Nitika, have you ever had to confront stereotypes about your identity in the stories you cover, and how do you balance personal experiences with professional reporting?
Yes, actually, a lot of it because being from the South Asian community in a sort of like a more Americanized country, right? You have to deal with stereotypes because racism is there everywhere. That's something that you have to deal with. And people assume certain things about you. Oh, you're from India. So a lot of those people assume that I am from a certain community from India, but I'm not, right? So they assume those things. So I think that's one of the problems that I had to go through and face as well and confirm that no, I'm not from that community. I'm from a certain country, from a different community, from a country. And a lot of those times, there are certain words that people use. For example, Indian, the term, is sort of used for the indigenous community and for the people who are Indians by nationality. So that confusion. So, those things I have to keep on reminding them that, no, those two things are different, right? Use the correct terms. And also, a lot of times is the language barrier. A lot of those people, I have to say that, and just putting it out there, it is not a compliment when you tell an Indian or person from a South Asian community that, oh, your English is so good.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't say that. That's not a compliment. That is sort of like a backhanded compliment,
No.
should I say. So all of these little things do put up on me, right? And a lot of those times people ask me that, whether you have the Canadian experience. Can you understand what's happening in the Canadian politics or the Canadian environment? Are you okay with it? Do you understand it? I mean, of course I do. Like, there's a reason why I'm here, right? So all of these things that people might understand that as very innocent thing, but it's not. It actually impacts a lot of those South Asian community. I'm talking about South Asian because I am a South Asian from a South Asian community. Right? I'm an Indian. So a lot of these things affect you, obviously, because you feel sort of I should say, a little outcasted. You feel not included a lot of times, even if they say that it's the largest, it's very inclusive and everybody is welcomed, everybody's included. But I think inclusiveness starts with understanding.
Mm.
You have to understand that everybody is different. That is okay. Not everybody is like equal in terms of equity. No, it's okay to understand and accept that everybody is different. The thing is, when everybody's different, you're giving people the chance depending upon their differences so that they can feel included. I think that is something a lot of people in the professional environment, in personal life, I think they fail to understand that. And this is the reason why so many of us still feel a little excluded and choose to stay with people from our own community instead of going out and meeting and sort of like involving ourselves with the other people. Yeah.
Yeah. And Nitika, something you mentioned over there, the idea is that, sometimes people have this sort of bias, right? And they kind of talk, it's like
Yep.
kind of compliments. But at the same time, it makes me think as well, there might be situations where the fact that you are South Asian or the other in a very broad sense might give you insights into reporting. Have you ever been in situations where maybe your background, gave you insights or perspectives that maybe other people, other cultures were missing?
Definitely, I can give an example actually. So, recently in my country, there was a huge uproar about the hijab ban in colleges. It was everywhere, the news was everywhere. I belong from that country. I know how the politics works. I know about each and every nuances that works, the religion differences, how the politics play in hand with religion over there. So that helped me because I was asked to do sort of like an opinion piece on it, me and a couple of other people. But my opinion piece had way more nuanced details into it. I knew who to talk to. I knew what questions I need to ask. I knew what kind of historical information I need to, back my thought process with. I knew what kind of opinions because I had knowledge about the constitutional rights, the educational rights, because I've read about it. I've lived there, right? So all of it helps me give a very nuanced, very detailed information and correct factual information, which is not just opinion, rather proper information that I can use to back myself up. A lot of things as well. For example, any cultural function that we have over here,
Mm,
right? Be it Diwali, be it Durga Puja, whatever, any cultural celebrations that we have are holy for that matter. I am a part of that celebration because I know how it is celebrated. I know the details. So, for example, in a lighthearted note, if they want to celebrate it in an organization or in a college or anywhere, right, they do ask me out. They're like, okay, what should we include in it? What kind of food habits can we do that, right? So, in both work matters and in both like personal life and like very cultural aspects as well, being a part of a certain community helps you because you have first-hand knowledge, you have first-hand experience, right? You lived that life, right? And when you live a certain life, you know everything about that life rather than somebody who has seen that life from an outsider perspective. So that helps me gain that knowledge, that insight, that sensitivity, because I know how to deal with certain matters with certain level of sensitivity. I know what questions I should ask. What line should I not stop when I'm asking a certain question? Say I'm asking a question about Islamophobia in my own country. I know what questions I should ask, what line should I not step out of,
mm.
and what kind of relationship I need to build with that person so that that person trusts me enough to give out that information. So all of this is obviously is because I was a part of that country and enough from that nationality, and I have that knowledge beforehand. Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting, Nitika, because what you're talking right now is sort of an opinion piece that had to do with sort of your South Asian in Canada and talking about looking at sort of like looking at politics in India. Can you talk a bit more sort of as a journalist, what is it like for you to cover, let's say, and like very broad, South Asian, or let's call it non like minority news in Canada? Do you find nuances about that? Like, do you find anything interesting? Like, when you're talking about a place where people, like you said, they're giving you backhanded compliments about your language skills, your ability. What is the experience like then covering, minority news? Is that something that's favored in journalism? Do you find there's maybe biases in when it comes to even the kind of reporting that takes place?
definitely biasness is there. I have to say a lot of those reports are underrated, are underreported, I should say. I'll give an example. When I was working with Humber College as a part of the Surviving Hit project, it is the indigenous community that I'm facing, or that I'm covering, right? So all of those data that I saw when I was reading up and I was doing my research, when I was talking to people, all of those data are underreported. Like it's like 80% underreported. 80% of them are not even out there. The information that will be crucial to their development and for their betterment. So that made me realize that even if we have so many of people from different communities in a certain country. The systematic racism that we are talking about, that is still there. And when we are talking about systematic racism, it's a very ingrained thing. It's systematic. It's there in everywhere. Be
Mm,
it police force, be it medical, be it education, be it say any like career that you're choosing to any professional field. That systematic racism is there, and dealing with it is difficult because people will have a certain mentality towards you,
mm,
right? And that will be a little difficult. But yes, one thing I have to say that being a part of certain community when I'm covering news out there, the level of trust that minorities have for another minority sort of increases when you're in a place where everybody's dealing with sort of racism and sort of like this. I should not use the word phobia because
yeah.
I hate that word. But yes, like take it Islamophobia or take it, it's homophobia or, any of this mentality that people have, right? So, when I was covering all of those news, say something happened, for example, the recent case, the nature killing, right? We had so many of the anti, Sikh movements out there, a lot of those fights going on, right? So, like, I'm not a Punjabi, I do not belong to that particular community, but I'm an Indian after all,
Mm,
right? So that gives me that first-hand experience about knowing what history it happened, like what happened and what is going on and how it is not exactly the people over here, but somebody else outside who is actually sort of like puppeting it around. And this kind of knowledge only happens when you have the historical knowledge. When you know what has happened in the past, that's the only way you can actually figure out the road to the present and soon the future, right? You should know what's happening, what had happened in the past. So all of this helps because I've read that history, I've lived that history, I've seen my friends or my family live that history, right?
mm,
So that helps me give that upper hand over here in Canada when I'm sort of covering those news or sort of talking about those news articles or those people. Like when I'm interviewing those people, I know what questions to ask.
mm,
I know what to talk about. And I know when to refute certain things that they give me. If they tell me something, I'm like, no, that didn't happen. I didn't read that. That's not there. That's not documented. That didn't happen. You're just talking about it. So a lot of these things help me because I have read about it. I have that, knowledge. And as somebody who belongs to a certain country, I know that history. So that gives me the upper hand over sort of like my counterpart who maybe do not have that knowledge or do not have that cultural sensitivity or reciprocation towards another person. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, it sounds as if that, a huge part of being a journalist is understanding the culture, understanding the environment, understanding the history. On one hand, it seems like you get that from almost by osmosis. You're in a culture, you get it. But in a new environment, as a journalist, you're going and you're learning about Canadian history, learning about Canadian politics and the Canadian landscape. This is a bit of an odd nuance, but it's almost that, as on one hand, we are in a society where we are seeing increased amount of immigration, increased amount of minorities. But given the fact that we are seeing minorities, why do you think there's still this notion of seeing minority news as other news and not Canadian news?
That's a really good question. The notion that comes is because we still are the other people. And I have to say that in a very strong feeling because that's there in every country out there. So every country you have in the most intricate detail, you have the oppressors, you have the oppressed people who are less in numbers or people who do not have the amount of sort of like I should say the ability to spread their knowledge out there, right? The force, the power, the representation. The people who do not have all of that, they will always be considered oppressed even if they are huge in numbers, unfortunately. People who have the opportunity to have representation, look at the Canadian politics, look at the representation over there, right? Take it the cabinet ministers or see the Canadian media organization specifically if I'm talking about which media organization has the biggest like representation right now. Take it CBC or CTV or news like that. Who are the major people working over there? Canadians,
Mm.
right? So representation matters a lot. So the reason why it is still considered other news is because we are taken as sort of like a pocket individuals, like sort of like a token, to just say, oh, we're inclusive in nature. So we just have one South Asian. We have one indigenous person from an indigenous community. We have one Muslim. We have one Hindu. We have one Sikh,
Mm.
right? Just we are taken as token of inclusivity. But inclusivity is not truly followed. That is the reason why we have South Asian media houses in Canada. Why do you think we have all of that? So
Mm.
that the representation continues, so that we are not seen as other people. We are seen as people in the community itself, trying to fight for our own rights as well, and for our own information being out there. We do not want to be considered. Nobody wants to be considered other,
Mm.
right? So I think it has to do with the mentality that, oh, if we have one person with us from a certain community, that person is representing the entire community. No, that
Yeah.
is not true. And I think that is the reason why we are still seen as other, because we are just taken as token of inclusivity instead of actually following what inclusivity is. That is taking multiple people from multiple dynamics so that you have a sort of like a group where you have dynamics instead of just one stagnant point of view. And everything falls in that person, right? You have something from sort of like I don't know, like a protest, say the Iran or Iraq protest, when we had all of that. You had that one Muslim reporter, you're just sending it to that. Okay, you just go there, you're a Muslim reporter. No, that is not inclusivity, that is wrong,
Yeah.
right? So all of these sort of like comes together, and this is the reason why even if we have so many of immigrants coming together, we're still considered others, quote unquote. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think what I'd love to ask you in that sense is, it seems like what's stopping a lot of journalism right now is sort of, not stopping, forgive me, is this sense of tokenism, right? We've got that one person, check the box, mission
Yeah.
accomplished. What do you think could make journalism more inclusive? Do you think it's a question of do you think maybe it's to make it simple? Is it sort of the media houses themselves? Is it just a question of time with the fact that as more minorities come in, you'll have more and more journalists? How do you see this playing out over time?
I have to say that I don't think that it's just minorities who can, sort of cover other news. No, anybody can cover news as long as we have the knowledge, as long as you have the sensitivity, as long as we have sort of like the thought process to cover it. For example, if there is sort of like a car crash or a murder, if I'm going out there, it's just white people or say people who I don't know, right? Do you think I'm going to have a certain level of be like, oh, it's just white people. I don't know what they're going through. No, they're human beings. that somebody lost their life, right? So that is the first thing that will come out of me as a human being, right? Empathy. And understanding that there is a family member who lost somebody. I think if we apply this nugget of knowledge in everything we are sort of covering, that will make everything easier. I just have to say, media organizations don't have to, you know, hire more people from a certain community, or you don't have to give everything to one person from one community. Inclusivity is including everybody together. That is true sense of inclusivity. Like I, as a POC, as a person of color, and somebody who is a sort of like a white person, right? Or somebody who is, from a Black community or East Asian community or whatever it is, we are all together working on a certain or working on a certain news piece or something. So we all learn from each other, learning from each other. That is also main thing. Like have team meetings, have team build activities where everybody's together, talking together, right? Understanding and have that sensitivity. Do not, I have to say this to everybody, do not listen just to respond.
Mm.
Listen to understand. That is something a lot of people forget these days. You don't listen to just answer somebody back. Listen so that you understand what that person is saying. Be empathetic. Have that patience. Try to understand. It's okay if you don't understand the first time. Ask questions. It is okay. Do you think a lot of people have not asked me questions as a POC? They have.
Mm.
They have asked me questions to clarify. Ask it. It's okay. As long as when to not be offensive, you know. Like I know a lot of people ask these questions. What kind of Asian are you? Don't ask that. Ask about your community background. There are certain words to use.
Yeah.
And all of these knowledge would only come when we see everybody as sort of like together, like people, like we are all human beings at the end of the day. Sure, we all have different experiences. As long as we accept that differences, it is okay to admit your difference, your privilege,
Mm.
and stay together. What is not okay is disrespecting somebody's, sort of experiences and their disadvantage and ignoring your privilege and living in that bubble. And
Yeah.
that will never lead to true inclusivity. That will always make more room for this token inclusivity that we are all talking about. So even right now, inclusivity can truly prevail if we all actually sit together, talk about it, listen. Just
Mm.
talk, listen, that's it. Just talk to people, listen to people, understand what's happening, read up about their history. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Just read. Just contribute an hour a day or half an hour a day. Just read up what's happening. If you want to have a true opinion on what's happening in Palestine, read up about it.
Mm.
Just understand how it is flowing, what is happening, why people are supporting Gaza, what is happening in Gaza, why they're fighting back. Read up about it instead of just relying on, say, some piece of news and having your own opinion over it. No, talk to different people. You know, have that sensitivity, have that feeling that okay, I need to learn more. All of these will contribute to what we talk about inclusivity in the long run. Hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for that, Nitika. But before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to maybe mention again or highlight or discuss?
I mean, just I have to say that don't put all of your pressure on that one person because
Mm.
that person is dealing with their own issues as well. They're dealing with racism. They're dealing with being not being accepted. When you think that you're including them by giving them all the information or all the sort of duties or responsibilities of a certain
Mm.
community, you're not including them. You're still excluding them.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, you are not welcomed here. You're welcome just there. Stay right there. So that is not inclusivity. So understanding the core of inclusivity, I think it's very important for it to even work. Just bringing, students together or bringing people from different communities together. No, that's not going to happen. There will be differences. It's upon us as individuals at the end of the day. It's also upon the system,
Mm.
how they are able to nugget those things together and fight against the systematic oppression. To give an example, you know what happened in USA after George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter took a whole another level. The thing that they were challenging was systematic racism, that no matter how much things prevail, no matter how much we have laws, the system is racist. And that's why they will always deal with, the racism, be it in South Asian community, we have systematic patriarchy. No
Mm.
matter how much laws we have, the system is built in a sort of way to protect patriarchy. So how are we going to deal with it? In the same way, over here, the system is built to protect the oppressors, the people who have the upper hand, the white supremacists, people who built that system. So how are we going to deal with that? The moment we ask these questions and the moment people actually listen to reason instead of just being argumentative, I think that's when we will actually feel true inclusivity. We have a long way to go, but if we actually start now, I'm pretty sure there will be a time, a day in the future when we all truly become inclusive. Yeah, that's how to say.
Thank you so much, Nitika. And if any of the listeners want to get in touch with you or just learn more about you or follow articles you do, what's the best way they could do that?
Best way they can follow me on my Instagram, like it's on my name, Nitika_Mishra. You just have to go there. You can check out my posts over there. I'm very active on social media,
Yeah.
and on LinkedIn, I have my email ID up there. So if anybody wants to like contact with me, they can just go to my LinkedIn profile and just click on contact, just message. That's the best way to do that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being a guest today, Nitika.
Thank you so much. It was great. It was a pleasure being here talking to you.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care.